Thank you very much. In a room full of people, you typically find three types. The ones who make things happen, those who observe things happen, and those who wake up one day and wonder, what happened? And I think a lot of you belong to the first type. Now, what distinguishes those who make things happen? Resources, capabilities, luck? I would say, above all, it's their mindset. Does mindset matter? Mindset is our cognitive map, our mental GPS. To illustrate that power, let me give you a few examples. In 1927, Harry Warner, the founder of Warner Brothers, famously said, "Who the hell wants to hear actors talk?" Those were the days of the silent films. In 1943, the founder of IBM famously said, "I think that there is a world market for perhaps 5 computers." 1977, Olsen, the founder of Digital Equipment, back then the second largest PC company, said, "I don't see any need for individuals to have computers at home." In 2000, the president of Chrysler Corporation went to India. At the end of the trip, he said, "Call me when you have built some roads." And he didn't see many opportunities then. That was 2000. In 2020, India could be building more cars than the US. If you think we're getting smarter, in 2007, Palm's former CEO commented on Apple launching the new iPhone. He said, "What does a computer company know about phones?" He looked at the smartphones from the lens of the phones rather than from the lens of smart computers. Now, in 10 years, you will be in the prime of your career. What will the next 10 years look like? Simply put, the next 10 years, we will see a bigger transformation in the structure of the global economy than any decade over the last 200 years. Driving this transformation is the rise of the emerging market. Over the last decade, emerging markets have been developing, growing 3 times faster than the developed ones. When the emerging markets were small, they could grow fast, but didn't make much a big impact. Now they are gathering bulk. When they gather bulk and continue to grow fast, the impact on the global economic structure is much bigger. Today, emerging economies is about 1/3 of the global economy. By 2025, they could be accounting for nearly half of the global sky. And over the coming decade, over 3/4 of the growth will be coming from the emerging market. If you take a 100-year time frame, we are now sitting smack in the middle of a historical standing point. Back in 1950, US GDP was 20 times that of China. Today, it is 2.5 times that of China and 8.5 times that of India. If you just make 3 conservative assumptions, one, that US continues at, or picks itself up and grows at 2.5%. If you assume that China slows down to 6 to 7%, and if you assume that Chinese renminbi yuan appreciates at 3 to 4% a year, if you do that math, it's clear that by 2025, China will catch up with that of the US. By 2050, China's economy could be twice the size of the US. And India is following the similar trend, trailing China by about 12 to 14 years, and that's the time lag between when China started its economic reform in 1978 and when India jumped on a similar train in 1991. Today, India is the 9th largest economy. By 2020, it could become the 4th largest economy, surpassing Germany, and by 2025, surpassing Japan to become the 3rd largest economy. Essentially, ladies and gentlemen, by 2050, the combined GDP of China and India could be equal to the combined GDP of US, Europe, and Japan. Now, like it or not, the US-dominated single polar world is gone. Gone with wind blowing from the east, from the south. Okay? Now, thank you. What is... Not a lot of Americans here. I don't get that applause when I speak to an American audience. But what is interesting is that the world is not going to be replaced by a single polar world dominated by China. That's not the case. The world is going to become a multipolar world. Now, you may ask, is this multipolar world going to be a fragmented multipolar world? And my answer is no. If you look at the trend, the long-term trend of trade flow or capital flow, if you look at the rapid diffusion of technology and ideas, the people flow, and the rapid spread of access to internet, the long-term trend of global integration is irreversible despite the political tension, economic tension, and the current Eurozone crisis. Now, if the world is becoming multipolar and at the same time integrated, what does that mean for corporations? Very soon, you will be working for one of them, or you will be helping to shape up the future of that corporations, or you will be starting one of your own. What will be the building blocks for tomorrow's winning organizations? Now, industry dynamics differ, strategies may differ, and I would say that at the core of the building block is to cultivate a global mindset. Cultivate a global mindset. But what is a global mindset? I would say that to have a global mindset, you must have 2 dimensions. One is an openness to and knowledge of diverse cultures and markets, and second is the ability to integrate across this diversity. A lot of companies, when looking through their ethnocentric lenses, they get themselves into trouble. For example, when eBay went to China to set up the B2B business, they went there quite early, but when they set it up, the site, they made the site look simple, the way the Americans liked, but the Chinese found it too empty. They did not allow buyers and sellers to contact each other to negotiate. The Chinese cannot close any deals without bargaining. Bargaining is like our national hobby. Gain lots of satisfaction, purely for the sake of bargaining, But how do you cultivate a global mindset? It's not that easy because emerging markets grow 3 to 4 times faster than the developed ones. In 4 years, change in China could be equivalent to change in a developed market in a generation. Plus, these markets are vast and diverse. Okay. You look at China. China is like a continent. Here on the left is a map of China, provinces labeled as countries with equivalent population size. And on the right are provinces labeled as countries with equivalent population size. A city like Delhi or Beijing or Shanghai or Chongqing has several million more people than the entire nation of the population in Netherlands. Now, facing such a vast and diverse market, how do you develop a deep knowledge? I would say that you develop a deep knowledge not by short visits, but by on-the-ground immersion over a longer period of time. Now, you develop this deep knowledge not through observation, but through problem solving in that culture. 15 years ago, when I signed up for a project, a consulting project to work for Far East Shipyard, my mentor told me, don't go, Haiyan, it's suicidal. you will find a difficult time plugging back in. You move sideways, others will move straight up. It was probably true back then, but I don't think it's true today. If you look at some of the career migration journeys of the top executives of Unilever, for example, Mr. Bailey started out in South Africa, then headed up Unilever business in Asia, and then Western Europe, and today the chief HR officer and member of the executive committee. And another member of the executive committee, Mr. Zetterfeld, similarly has a very rich international experience. And I don't think that these are the exceptions. I think these are the norms of how executives prepare themselves to be the captain of the future enterprises. The second mechanism for cultivating a global mindset is really to develop a one-company culture. It might sound a little bit counterintuitive, but I have yet to come across a CEO who wants things to get out of control. It's only when you are confident that you have the ability to integrate, then you will push the envelope to build a dispersed organization. Now, a husband and a wife, if they have a cohesive relationship, they can say to each other, now over the next 1 year, you live there in Washington, I live here in Netherlands. After all, this land is ranked one of the highest in the happiness index by OECD. Congratulations. I would love to live here. And so you need that one company culture, that glue, before you can have the diversities and expanding out to the diverse cultures market. And finally, perhaps the most potent mechanism for cultivating a global mindset is to globalize the corporate brain, globalize the nerve centers for decision making. Okay. Where would the leadership be coming from? How deep is their knowledge? Where would they be sitting? For a lot of organizations, there exists a 5,000 to 10,000 miles gap between where opportunities and threats sit and where decision-making powers sit. Okay? The threats and opportunities are there. You cannot bring it here, but you can move your decision powers over there. And we started seeing corporations, the leading ones, moving their top executives to the front, to the battlefield. For example, out of the 12 executive committee members of Honeywell, one sits in India, one sits in China. John Rice, the vice chairman of GE, when appointed to lead the global growth, he immediately relocated to Hong Kong. The group president for emerging markets for Caterpillar sits in Hong Kong. The chief procurement officer of IBM sits in Shenzhen. And Starwood Hotel, the CEO actually took the whole top team to Shanghai in the summer to experiment running the headquarters from Shanghai. Now, when a boss doesn't sit home, what does that mean to us? It could mean that when the cat is away, the mouse can play. Yes, or the other way around. And it could mean that you will be up at night a lot on conference calls. It could also mean that someday when you lead the global operations, that your home base may be far, far away from home. So ladies and gentlemen, if you are with me, believing that the world is becoming increasingly multipolar and increasingly integrated, then the future belongs to those organizations that can build a globally integrated organization with roots in many countries. And the change is happening very fast. Facing nonlinear change, some will adapt, reinvent, others will shrink and die. I think that these kind of leading organizations are those organizations globally integrated with roots in many countries. That's where you belong, that's where you will lead. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Haiyan, let me play devil's advocate for just a moment. You got some applause here when you said that the dominance of the United States is completely over. But isn't it still the world's best creative power. I mean, what has China come up with recently? Not with the iPhone or the iPad, or they're all thought of in the United States. They're made in China, but the profits go to the United States.
What I said is that the US-dominated single polar world is gone, but the US is still one of the mega poles. If you measure superpower along several dimensions, economic power, military power, innovation power, ideology power, if you combine all of those, I think that even in 2025, when China catches up with the US in terms of economic power, China will still be lagging behind. But what we are moving towards is a multipolar world, that US is just one of the megapoles balancing with Europe, India, China, and this. And China is still today very much an imitator. And but that
will that change? Will it become a more creative country?
It will slowly. We Chinese are creative imitators, and